Hello folks, welcome to the second installment of Branchlines of the NW. In this video we look at one of the very last branch lines built by the NW prior to the merger with the Southern. This line is the Big Prater Creek Spur, one of my personal favorites. It was on this branch line that I took my very first train picture way back in 2005. The trains would stop running a year later. The construction on the Big Prater Creek Spur began in 1975 and was completed the following year. This line was built for one reason and one reason only: to haul coal. The line only had one loader for its entire life, the huge Island Creek, Virginia Pocahontas No. 5 mine. We'll discuss the mine when we reach the end of the line. The 3.5 mile branch line used to split off the main at Van Sant. Even though the tracks are still in place, Norfolk Southern took the switch out last year. It formerly diverged right at milepost D39. From the junction, it turned south along Prater Creek and ran for about a mile. It then crossed the long, low trestle across the Prater Creek Valley and turns east along Deskins Creek for the remainder of the trip up the holler. Any crew that ever worked this branch will tell you how steep it was. According to the current Pocahontas Division timetable, the branch had a 2% grade that started as soon as you come off the main line there at Van Sant. It climbed continuously till you reached the yard at the mine. I'm told the yard was the flattest part of the line. I've hiked the roadbed several times over the last couple years, and I swear it looks steeper in some places than 2%. Mark Martin, one of the engineers that worked VP5 regularly, told me you had to set exactly 11 pounds of air on the train before departing the mine. This was for the heavy 3-mile grade back down to Van Sant. Track speed on the line was 10 miles per hour, but I don't think I ever seen a train going that fast, especially coming back off with loads. Shifters working VP5 had to shove the empties the 3-mile trip up the holler from Van Sant to the mine. A track warrant had to be obtained from the PD dispatcher to work between Van Sant and Koenig. The Koenig station sign was right at the west switch at the yard at VP5. The last train I ever saw traversing the branch was right before it all ended in April 2006. It was empties being shoved up the holler by one of the then brand new 7500 series ES44 DCs. From what I remember, they mainly worked VP5 either late in the night or early in the morning. When you reached the west switch at Koenig, the main line fanned out into 3 tracks. The creek track, or what they call the main line, the middle track, and the hill track. Shifters would deliver either 75 or 100 empties at a time. Then they would take that amount back down with them. As I said earlier, the shifters would back the empties up the holler to the west switch. Then the train would stop and the conductor would get off and line the derails. The train would then either shove the empties into the hill track or the middle track. After delivering the empties, the cab would have to be dropped back down onto the loads in the creek track. By dropping, the conductor had to let the cab gravity roll down onto the loads. He used the handbrake to control the speed. This is also called bobtailing. Sometimes, with the help of their cabless Alco switcher, the mine crews would help the shifter crews out and set the cab off the empties and onto the loads for them. With the yard being mostly flat up here, it was really hard to drop the cab down onto the rear of the loads. All 3 tracks come back together at the east switch to form the short tail track. Island Creek utilized the tail track to reach their loadout. I remember seeing the switcher, or dinky as we call them up here, easing empties across the highway to the loadout. Just my guessing, the tail track was probably 15 or 20 car lengths long. The little re-engined Alco didn't have enough horsepower to pull that many cars. The dinky here was actually donated to the county for the ill-fated Buchanan County tourist train. Like everything else, Buchanan County didn't go through with it, and the locomotive was scrapped along with the plant in 2013. Even since the tourist railroad didn't happen, that little locomotive still would have made a nice display. At least some of the Island Creek's presence in the county would have been preserved. There's nothing left of anything now except for capped over shafts and grassy fields where the big mines once were. Thanks, Buchanan County. Now we move on to the mine itself. As you can see, this place was massive. These pictures from Google Earth Pro allow us to see what the plant looked like. The aerial shots were taken in 2012, less than a year before demolition began. The highway picture you'll see in a minute was taken in October of 2008, almost 3 years after the final ton of coal was produced here. The mine was opened in 1977 and was the sixth mine in Island Creek's Virginia Pocahontas Division. The mine operated under Island Creek's control until 1994 when CONSOL purchased the Island Creek Coal Company from their parent company, Occidental Petroleum. Later that same year, VP5 and the nearby VP6 mine were cut together to form the VP8 mine. CONSOL used both portals as well as both prep plants to clean and load the coal produced in this massive mine. Norfolk Southern delivered and pulled these operations every day. This continued for the next 12 years when the decision was made in April 2006 to hand out pink slips to the VP8 miners and idle both the prep plants and the mine itself. The shafts were capped over and the plants and rails leading to them were left to rust over. One shred of hope for VP5 was the fact that CONSOL kept it around as a backup plant for their nearby Buchanan mine. That shred was lost in 2013 when demolition began on the site. Brent Harrison contributed this beautiful picture he shot of the dinky parked under the loadout with the prep plant in the background. No less than 3 months after this photograph was shot, everything here was just a memory. In 2014, both Norfolk Southern and CONSOL Energy were looking at rehabbing the line for a proposed natural gas loadout at Koenig. Sadly, those plans fell through. Even though it's out of service and the switch has been removed, the Big Prater Creek Spur is my second favorite branch line on Norfolk Southern. It'll always hold a special place because that's the very first place I ever shot a train. I remember seeing trains cross the massive Prater Creek trestle as well as going by my aunt and uncle's house up in Deskins. The tracks run high on the hill across the creek from them. And their yard is the very first place I ever aimed a camera at a train. Through all the trees and stuff, you could barely tell what it was, but hey, I took a picture of it, and I'm glad I did. If this county would ever get serious about bringing a tourist railroad here, this line would be the best candidate for it. There's more than enough room to store equipment at the yard up there. There's plenty enough room for parking and passenger loading at the former A shaft site. And there's also plenty enough room for a repair facility up there. Having hiked the line numerous times, I'm here to tell you, some of the scenery up there is breathtaking. As you can see from the aerial views, the line's carved into the side of the mountain. Although I've never been out on the trestle, I'd say the view of the Prater Creek Valley is beautiful from up there. Overall, the tracks are still in good shape. Ties were put down less than 2 years before the last train ran. The only exception to this fact is there's 2 small slides. Only time will tell if this line will ever feel the weight of a train again. One can only dream.